Hey guys, what is up? It is Sarah. I hope you are having a great day. I just wanted to say hello before this video starts. How are you guys doing? Are y'all doing well? I got a lot of people asking me to upload the other interviews to the Creative Spaces TV episodes, so that is what I'm doing today. Before we get started, I am posting every single day on sarahdici.com. I am blogging it up, so there is a lot going on over there right now that you can check out. If you have not watched Creative Spaces TV yet, I will put some links up at the top and down below. Make sure to watch those. And it seems like you guys did like them. I am trying to maybe organize another round of those episodes. It just takes time and money, so I am trying to figure that out right now. Hopefully this gives you a cool little insight into kind of behind the scenes of this mini docu-series. If you're into film, if you're into documentary style shooting, and maybe you're nervous about like interviewing someone or something like that, hopefully this helps you. I am not a professional interviewer, but hopefully you can tell that I kind of just sit and have a conversation with the person, and things went pretty well. I think I got some insightful things from these creatives, and it was pretty much like a 20 to 30 minute interview for each person, and I got like a solid 4 to 5 minutes out of them for the actual films that I made. So let me know in the comments down below if you digged, Creative Spaces, and if you're liking the full interviews. Let me know if you have any questions, but enjoy. I will see you guys next Tuesday. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe.
I'm Brandon Owens, and I run The Silent Planet, which is the studio that we're in right now. And it's kind of, I travel on the road as a musician most weekends, and then during the weeks I just make music in here.
Awesome. Yeah. So how long have you been involved in music, and what initially got you into it?
I grew up in playing in church worship bands, but I actually started playing. My brother was really into music, and he's a year older than me, and he was like, one day he walked up and he said, "I'm starting a band, you're playing this," and he handed me a bass guitar, and I had zero interest in it at the time, but as I figured it out just to play in his band, I actually developed a passion for it and really grew to like it, and been playing in bands ever since.
That is awesome. Yeah. So how the transition in between taking a passion and making it into your job, maybe speak to what that was like, taking something that you eventually grew to like and to making it into your
job. Taking something that you love and turning it into a job I don't think it really happens for a lot of people. It's very tough. So I'm very fortunate to have been able to do that. But for a long time I did graphic design. That was like my full-time job, but it wasn't fun at all. It was like doing billboards for an Outback Steakhouse, and I'd create it, and they'd be like, "Hey, can you put a drop shadow under that steak?" I'm like, I hate my life. So I think for me, actually my wife kind of pushed me into it. I've always made music on the side and just enjoyed it, listen to music, and always been in bands and stuff. And so one day she was just like, "I think your heart maybe died. Why don't you just get a part-time job for a little bit, quit doing graphic design, and just pursue music?" And Nashville being the city that it is, it's like you can just stand on the street corner and be like, "I play this," and someone will pick you up, And so it just slowly turned into playing on the road, and then from there we just started recording, and just for fun, and it was wasn't anything that I had planned to do as a living or anything, but we just took this bedroom in the back of my house and started getting gear and tracking drums in the living room and just making weird music, and then we built this place, and it just kind of became a hobby, kind of turned into not a full profession yet, but something that I love to do and get to do a lot.
So talk about the studio a little bit, how you legit built it. What was it before, and what was kind of the decision-making process of making this?
Yeah, the studio came out of recording more and more and it being in my house in a bedroom was like, it was a little rough. My wife's a trooper, so thankfully, so she'd be like, we'd be tracking drums in the living room and bass in another room, and she'd be in the bedroom with like earphones and like a beanie on, trying to just like watch something on her iPad. And so um, when we realized that this was kind of something that we were going to keep doing and keep pursuing, we thought about buying a space or a new house or whatever. And we had, this area was just a covered patio that we used to hang out in, basically in our backyard. And we were like, let's just close that in. It's already like a space that we hang out in and love. So let's just make it into a studio. And I have all kinds of posters and Polaroids on the wall. When we were, I think back in like 2003, when I was engaged to my wife, she bought me a Polaroid camera. And at that time, you could just go to Walmart and buy film for like $5. And so I just fell in love with it and started taking pictures. And now it's a lot more expensive and I do it a lot less. But just started collecting old cameras and got all my old Star Wars posters from my parents' house. And just knickknacks from the road. And now the walls and everything have just become littered with, to me, it's history. Like, I love just kind of walking around and like catching a picture I haven't seen in a while. I'm like, oh, I remember that day, it was awesome. And then, once you start doing this, people find stuff on the road and they bring it to you like I found this owl and I think you need to have it. And so now I have this owl here. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So being out on the road, like how, do you still go on the road?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, very cool. So, when did you start going out on the road? Like, what did you play? How many, kind of talk to, like, maybe compare, like, road life versus kind of here in the studio. Like, do you prefer one or, maybe some differences?
Yeah. Road life is, the way I started doing that was, I quit that job doing graphic design. And for me, music, like growing up playing music, I was never that like bass player who was like, I gotta go study all the licks from my favorite players and learn the songs. I was more interested in, we could do that and we could cover songs or we could write songs. Like, let's make things, let's create. I was always like more interested in creating, and which is kind of the reason why I was never the best musician even on the road, because I could always figure stuff out, but I couldn't do all the licks, that a lot of people could do. But I was like, let's just make up, let's create music. So I think that's why I do love the road, and I really wanted to, like, as growing up, I was like, touring would be like the best thing ever. And I really enjoyed it the time I did it. But I think for me, this is more what I would love to do in the future, just kind of creating. And I started touring. I quit my job doing graphic design and met some guys who were playing in a band called Satellites and Sirens. And they were signed to a record label called Word Records and were just finishing up their first record. And so I jumped on with them and for a couple years and played bass and synth and just toured in a van, be gone for like weeks at a time. I'd come home to my wife and be like, hey, I was gone for a month, but I made $800. And she'd be like, yeah, I made that today. So it was fun, but it was tough. And I think when that ran its course, I had met another artist named Francesca Battistelli. She was on the same label as us, and I don't think anyone at the label really liked our band that much. And so in order to get us to events that their other artists were playing, they would have us come and be the backup bands for all the other artists. And so through that, I met a lot of people, and I met Francesca. And so when I left Satellites and Sirens, she asked me to come play bass for her. So I played bass for her for 3 years on the road, which is great. We just tour weekends, like Thursdays through Sundays. So it makes it easy when you have a family, and now I have a son. And for me, I wanted to get off the road altogether. So about a year and a half ago, I quit, and I thought I was quitting for good. But now I'm back out with Francesca again, just kind of doing like a utility role, just playing whatever needs to be played when it needs to be played, acoustic guitar, rhythm guitar, like keys here and there if it needs to happen. So it's still fun, but I think I'm no spring chicken anymore. So touring for me, as much as I love it and I love the people I tour with, they're like my second family. I think recording is something I'm a little more excited about, because when you're playing every night, you're playing the same songs over and over again, which is cool. But like in the studio, you're always creating. You're always thinking of the next thing, new, just fresh stuff. So I think this is what I would like to transition into more full time.
Cool. So talk about kind of like the creative process of when you have a band come in. Do you are you able to to contribute like new ideas and stuff? It's like what's your favorite part about like collaborating with different bands? I guess
the creative process working with bands for me is always a little different. I'm very much hands off. There's a lot of producers who just, they come in and they're the captain of the boat, and it's like it's gonna be their way or the highway, and that's why you hired me, so you gotta trust me, and it's great. They get a lot of great things done, but I think I've found that I'm a little more of a, if a drummer does a take, I think a lot of times I won't even give them a ton of direction, because I think a lot of times they know what they did wrong, and a lot of times I'll just hit go again, and the next time they'll hit it. So, but then again, sometimes it's not. There's a lot of people who just need a lot of direction, and I'm not the best at that. Every artist I work with, I like to think that I co-produce with them, because they obviously have something awesome that they want to record. Hopefully it's awesome. Sometimes it's not, and you just got to make some money, so, just to be honest. But the bands that I really love working with, I love working with them because they bring something awesome to the table. And I see myself less of a captain of the ship, and more just kind of steering the boat, and taking their ideas and directing them in the right direction. And there's a lot of times where I have to admit that I'm wrong, which is fun. I love that. It makes it a true co-production, I think. But my favorite part of studio stuff is just the engineering. If bands could always bring in their own producer and just let me run this and mic up the kit and like find the sounds, but not be responsible for like the end product, a lot of times is my favorite. But yeah, it's all different. A lot of bands want just that knee-jerk sound, which it's not my favorite thing. Like, why? It's no fun, I'm like, let's do something outside the box. Like, I think you were here last night and we were doing percussion, and we did like a whole rim shot take and a tambourine take and a floor tom take, and just looped them and added them onto the drums, and just, I like thinking outside the box and doing creative stuff like that. Yeah.
For sure, that's cool. So, speaking to the kind of engineering side of things, because I know a lot of people are interested in the gear side of, producing stuff, and I love that stuff too. I geek over it. So, first off, maybe from like a musician standpoint, is there anything that, is there like your ultimate setup that you have in your head that you like dream of, or like maybe you have it right now, or
Yeah.
kind of talk about gear a little bit.
Okay. The ultimate setup from a gear standpoint would be a lot different than what I have right now. I have accumulated a lot of great stuff that I really like, but I mean, for me, I think it's kind of trendy right now to be into like the old school analog and tape, which is great. And I think I lean that way a little bit too. If I could, I would have maybe not like a full console, but like a Neve, like a sidecar or something, like 16 channels or something like that, and just maybe some more like outboard compressors, like some 1176s and stuff, just to really mix. And then, I mean, a tape machine would be awesome. But then once you get into all that stuff, you guys start talking about a bigger space. I think ideally, I like the vibe in here. It's just one open room, drums sound cool, but at the same time, it's like everybody's on headphones when you're tracking, and you get 5 guys in a band in here, and it gets real small real quick. And especially when they bring their mom and their dad and their cousin over to hang out. Yeah, I think I like vibey, but I think, a little bit bigger space. maybe a small console, analog console would be cool. Just lots more toys. I need more toys. My wife would disagree with that, but I think I need more toys.
Story of like every musician's life, right?
Yeah, but gear wise, I like I think tracking through Neve stuff. It's just real warm. I like that a lot. I like API stuff a lot too, especially for drums. Yeah.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
And then maybe on the flip side of that, talk about creating with like what you have, because I know as a musician myself or a camera person, I'm always maybe too focused on like what's the next thing I need.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe talk about to the people out there that don't, because you have an insane setup right now. So maybe people who are just on their Mac laptop with Logic and maybe a few MIDI instruments, maybe talk about creating with what you have and like really embracing the learning process and stuff.
Yeah, I think for me, I went through a long period of always wanting more. But I think it was just for me to get to a point where I was comfortable. Like when people came in and they saw what I had, they would feel comfortable in my space, knowing that we were going to get a good sound. And so I think all last year was that for me. Like any money I made from the studio was like throwing it back into gear, and had to have this gear. And so now I'm kind of at a point where I'm like, okay, I have great stuff, especially for tracking. Like I want to utilize it, learn how to use it to the best of my ability, not always being like, I need this next thing. Because I mean, there's just people are doing great stuff with so little these days, with where stuff has come. So just being happy with what you have. There's these pop artists that have access to the best studios in the world, and then you hear that they did all the vocals for their record on the road with like an Apogee duet and an SM7, and it's like, well, what excuse do I have for not, doing great stuff? And a lot of the bands I work with, the artists are so creative already that they'll bring in these scratch tracks, and I'm like, I want to use all this because it sounds so good, and they're like, oh, I did that on my MacBook with the built-in speaker, and I'm like, that sounds so rad. So I think a lot of it is you can definitely get stuck in a rut of like, I need this next thing. Well, if only I had this drum kit instead of this one, or if only I had this or whatever. And it's like, there's a lot of people out there with so little who are doing so much, and I think it's a lot more about who you are and your creativity than the gear. But then the gear does help a lot. So I'm trying to find a balance between both of them, I think. Utilizing great gear, then also being creative, like just tapping on the floor and miking it with like a SM7 or something for like a fun sound, it's like there's just everything around you that can be a great instrument. So just remembering that and just being creative. I think my space kind of lends itself to that, because it's weird.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, that was all incredible. So if you had like one thing to put out into the world, like a huge lesson that you've learned in life or anything, this is your chance. What would you say? It can be involving music, in anything. That's a big question.
That is a big question.
So, can have time to think about it.
Yeah, I think that is a big one. I think there's been different periods in my life where I've been learning different things, and I think the main thing that I'm learning right now, and advice that I would give to other musicians and just creatives and stuff, is just learning to enjoy the place where you're at and like live in the moment, but also learn how to strive for greatness in the next thing. And it's like a weird balance, because I have a lot of friends who are like, oh, if only I could get there, if only I could get here, if only I could get here. I should be like, dude, you have a family and you're great, you're making a living, you're playing music for a living, like enjoy that, and but then at the same time there's a lot of people who get complacent where they're at. I think there's a lot of people like that in Nashville. They come here to do music and they just get stuck you know, just being okay with being the friend of so and so, or oh, I know the guy who plays in this band, and I live in East Nashville, and I'm a roommate with the guy who knows the guy who does this, and it's like people get so complacent in that, and I'm just like, well, you came here to do music yourself. Why are you okay with this? So I think I'm learning a balance of enjoying life and the things that you have, and also, you know, striving to grow and do more and be better. It's just a weird balance. It's like, I forget who said it. I was watching something recently, and someone said something like, I wish you knew that you were in the good old days when you were in the good old days, you know, or something like that. Because it's like, I would have probably enjoyed it a lot more if I had realized this is the time, you know. So it's, yeah, that's kind of what I'm striving towards right now. So yeah.
That's good. That's awesome. Perfect. Love it.
Cool.
All right. Yeah, that was
Hope he wasn't
fantastic.
too loud.
No.